Hi, I'm Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz. Welcome to episode number 35 of the InnovaBuzz podcast, designed to help smart businesses with an interest in innovation and the Internet of Things become even more innovative. In this episode, my guest is Ossie Pisanu of Strata Management, who are a specialist strata management company based in Sydney, Australia, that is passionate about customer service, and they've recently undergone a major technology makeover to revamp their entire technology to, as Ossie puts it, catch up with their business model. Ossie talks to me about that technology makeover and the huge impact which it had on the staff, the team morale, and the ability of Strata Management to better serve its customers. This is a fascinating account, and there are a lot of gold nuggets in the interview for all business owners. So without further ado, let's get into the innovation hive and get the buzz from Ossie Pisanu.
This is the InnovaBuzz podcast, helping smart businesses be even more innovative.
Hi, I'm Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and I'm really excited to have here with me on today's episode of the InnovaBuzz podcast from Sydney in Australia, Ossie Pisanu, who's the owner and director of Strata Management. So it's a little bit of an unusual guest in terms of some of the guests we've had in the past. We haven't had a strata management company before. So welcome, Ossie. It's a privilege to have you on the InnovaBuzz podcast.
Well, thank you, Jürgen, and pleased to be with you.
Yeah. Now, you're here because Christy Hamilton of Benald suggested that we invite you, so a big shout out to Christy.
Thanks, Christy.
Now, just for our guests, a little bit of background. Guardian Strata is a specialist strata management company based in Sydney, and they're passionate about customer service. And the interesting thing for me when I was doing the research was that they've recently undergone a major transformation to revamp their entire technology. And I think there was a comment there where you mentioned catching up with the business model. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more about that today.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Now, before we kind of talk about strata management and what you're doing in your own marketing and with technology and innovation and all those things, let's find out a little bit more about your background. So taking you right back to childhood, what were your ambitions when you were a child?
Well, as any good teenager would tell you, that at around the 12, 13 and 14 mark, you think you know what you're going to be, but then you try it out and then you end up sort of being what you're passionate about. So I suppose in the early days, and when I was a teenager, I think when I started leaving school, back then Year 12 wasn't the high school certificate wasn't as prevalent as it was today, and I only ended up completing Year 10. And at that time, it was a finance and accounting background that I was looking for. Mm-hmm. Did a little bit of work experience, so I ended up probably doing the first part of my career in the banking environment, and landed in an assistant accounting role in the early part of my career, but it quickly developed in my early 20s into a passion for technology. And so I went from accounting to essentially systems accounting, and spent the last 30 years really on the technology side of accounting systems. And that's been pretty well the way it's been, combining both accounting and systems, and playing with anything that's new, implementing new things, trying to take an innovative view of continuous improvement at the end of the day to help make things easier for yourself and for your customers.
Mm. Oh, that's a fascinating journey. And when did you get into the strata management business then? Did you go through kind of a real estate training or period?
No, I didn't. I actually came into the strata industry via technology.
Okay.
I used to be the managing director of a technology company that sold high-end accounting systems to large corporates.
Mm-hmm.
And back about 15 years ago, CCH was one of our customers who wanted to develop a online strata management system back then. It was around about 2002, roughly. And we had the accounting piece to that solution. And after about 3 or 4 years, as that solution was developed, I actually ended up joining CCH, and then a few years later after that started my own strata management company. So I didn't come from a real estate background. I actually came from a technology background into the industry.
Okay, that's fascinating. That's kind of, you came from a service provider to the industry and decided that you could actually run it.
That's right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So what were some of the philosophies that you brought in and that made you decide
and actually,
that?
some of my colleagues say that because I got probably a 2 or 3 year look into the industry, and the business model for the strata industry is very solid. Firstly, it's a recurring revenue model, which is fantastic. Unlike an IT company, which they call it the heart attack industry because the sales are really blotchy.
Yeah.
1 minute you've got them, next minute you haven't. Whereas with strata management, it's based on a management fee model, which is a recurring revenue model. There's no debtors because essentially you draw your strata management fees from the trust accounts once a month. And you're also creating an asset which is saleable. And there's a lot of movement in the strata market in terms of companies that are small to medium being actually gobbled up by the larger corporations. So there is a level of consolidation occurring and has occurred in the market for the last 10 years and will continue to do so.
Okay, yeah, that's fascinating. You raised quite a few interesting points there, because certainly the recurring revenue model is something that I've been following a lot of people talking about that in the IT area and in the marketing and web area, and as you say, the typical small business has kind of got ups and downs where you do a lot of marketing, get some business projects, and then you stop marketing because you're busy doing the work for the customer and delivering on the projects, and then you finish the projects and you say, oh gosh, I don't have any more business now, so I better go back to marketing. So you've always got this up and down wave, if you like.
Exactly.
All right. So now, how long's Guardian Strata Management been going?
10 years now. We started in early 2007. So our 10-year anniversary happens in 6 or 7 months. So I think we're going to have to. You've just prompted me to remember to organise a 10-year anniversary party.
Yeah, well, that's a big one, isn't it? And I mentioned briefly in the introduction that you've had a pretty substantial makeover and transformation in the last 12 months, I guess. And would you like to tell us a little bit more about that? Because that's also has a lot to do with technology, doesn't it?
Oh, actually, in fact, by virtue of its name, it was a technology makeover. Well, firstly, it was sponsored by Microsoft in terms of the whole makeover. Our whole transformation was videoed by David Koch's team. That brought out a couple of emotions, I must say, along the road, and it's all for everyone to see up on YouTube. I think we ended up getting about 500,000 views because I think it's fair to say that we did open up the kimono. Where our intention was to, through our journey, assist other small businesses like ourselves to say, well, you probably don't realise the impact your technology decisions is having on yourself and your staff. So if I look back and say, well, we put our hand up for an award. I never thought in a million years that we would win it. But I think if I look back and basically what Microsoft told me in terms of perhaps the reasons why we were selected, one is we'd invested in innovation previously in terms of trying to utilize technology to make things better. But having said that, we invested on the software side and let the hardware fall by the wayside. So the makeover couldn't have happened at a better time, because even with 2 weeks to go live, my server pretty well kicked the bucket, and it was just fortunate that we were able to resuscitate it and keep going until we went, live with the makeover. So I think our investment in innovation, in quality systems, because we're also quality certified, came home to assist us in winning the award. Clearly, we had a unique personality, which helped in that we were willing to undertake the arduous process of actually going through a technology makeover, and it was pretty well every single system that we had and that we'd built over 10 years got replaced essentially within a 3-month period. Sorry, go ahead, Jürgen. Mm-hmm.
So when you say systems, you're talking now software and hardware?
Yep. So I'll give you, we're a less than 10-man outfit. We've got 7 or 8 staff. So we've got 17 new PCs delivered, a server, a fantastic IT company called Xcentral, which assisted us actually in implementing the hardware and some elements of the software, and I'll talk to you about the software in a minute. So it was a full infrastructure. It was getting the best we could afford in terms of internet connectivity. We moved offices at the same time. It was just sort of a bit of a fluke that happened. It just an opportunity came up, and we decided, we're doing everything else, we might as well do that as well. But the systems that we implemented that we didn't have before, where we implemented Microsoft CRM, for example. We implemented a reporting tool from Microsoft called Power BI, which is a business intelligence tool. We implemented a internal communication tool called Yammer. Mm-hmm. Even though there's a facility called Skype for Business, it's a little bit different to what we're using today. But Skype for Business is pretty well business to business Skype communication. What else did we do? Of course, Outlook, essentially the new version of Outlook. So we were the first in Australia to actually go to Outlook 2016 at the time.
Okay.
So it was a wholesale transformation of everything. And what I had to do at the start is not be wedded to the things I'd created. To get the best out of it, I had to say, not getting into not invented here syndrome and saying, I'm open to any improvements you can make so that my life and the lives of our staff can be significantly changed by the introduction of technology, which is what everyone in the project wanted to achieve.
Yeah, and certainly, well, first of all, I'd like to just encourage our listeners to go and look for the technology makeover. So we'll post links to that in the show notes today, because it is a fascinating journey. And like you said, you were very open. You laid everything bare there. The staff had direct access to the support team there, and there was everything documented along the path there as you moved forward. One of the things that I'm interested in, you talked about switching to the Microsoft CRM system. Did that involve a lot of changes to your work processes, how you did that?
Well, let me put it this way. It has enabled us since, I'll come back to that question in a second, it has enabled us since to significantly improve our processes. And I'll touch on the workflow capabilities of Microsoft CRM in a minute. So basically, we've used a task management system or case management system for quite a few years now, 5-6 years. I come for about at least 6 years of managing Guardian. We've invested in different forms of CRM systems. Mm-hmm. I did many years ago. The first one of those was actually Microsoft CRM version 1. I think at the moment they're up to version 10. And that was about 10 years ago when we first started Guardian. So having been reintroduced into the Microsoft world big time now through the latest technology, the things that I see, and I use still quite a few CRM systems in terms of automation and things like that. And once again, I come from a technology background, so I think I'm well qualified to comment on this. Is that the CRM, Microsoft CRM, has got all the bells and whistles you need. You've got the ability to record all your cases, which we do in terms of what our customers ask us to do. A lot of what Strata does is around due dates. We've got to do gutter maintenance for buildings, we've got to do insurances, we've got to organise annual general meetings, fire safety statements, and the list goes on. But more importantly, the workflow engine that sits underneath it allows you to essentially put on autopilot the things that human beings would normally have to remember. So by way of example, one of the statutory requirements is to have an annual general meeting every year in the industry. And the way we've set it up is that we send out an email saying 6 weeks in advance of the due date, say an AGM's coming up, an annual general meeting, and what extra motions would you like to be included? And actually schedule the annual general meeting so that no one forgets well in advance that something is due, certain things need to happen, and it's not left up to an individual to remember to get these things done. It just happens. And I think that in itself, that one aspect of the system is what really makes it so good. And the other small thing, which is not such a small thing, is a lot of customer relationship management systems come with a set of defined fields, shall we call them? And whereas Microsoft CRM allows you to expand on that to actually suit your specific requirements. So all of that in total has really transformed our ability to be proactive with our customers and rather than reactive.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of really good points there as well. And, you mentioned some small things, but they make a big difference, right? And a small thing, more small things making a big difference everywhere are going to transform the business. And also, for me, what essentially is a mechanical task, such as being reminded to do something, can kind of free up people to actually then be creative and be interactive and be focused on the customer when they're, whether it's that annual general meeting and checking what needs to go onto the agenda, or whether it's other services that you're providing. But, their mind's not cluttered, if you like, with, I've got to remember to send out a reminder on such and such a date. So all of that can happen automatically, including reminding the staff about, okay, here's the stuff that you actually have to do yourself.
Yep. Spot on.
So during that whole process, I'd just like to come back to that idea of what did it mean for the work processes and the work practices, because obviously, particularly the CRM and taking away, some of that repetitive work that is absolutely necessary but doesn't necessarily directly add value. What did that kind of mean for the business processes?
Okay, well, I think one of the things that is in particular for our larger clients who are in the process of managing their strata actually have regular meetings. One of the things that we're able to produce for them, and I'll say proactively, is an up-to-date task list. In CRM terminology, it's they're called cases. We call them tasks. So that as they have their formal meeting to meet their statutory requirements, we're able to give them saying, well, these are all the things that you've asked us to do. Here's the current status of all of them, and here's the history of the interaction that we've had in relation to it. So they actually use that as their own action list to make formal decisions.
Okay. Yeah.
As part of the formal meeting, or to give us instructions to move forward, because it might be, for example, a quote that we've asked them to approve and we haven't heard back from them, and they use the formal meetings to actually then give us instructions to issue a work order to a contractor to perform some works.
So you're actually, adding value to them in helping them get organised as well, which is awesome.
Yeah, because with most other, I can't comment for a lot of strata managers, but there's not a lot of them that strata managers actually are of the customer relationship management system mindset, and their mode, I would suggest, is looking at emails and seeing what's outstanding, rather than having a systemized way of recording your interactions with your client, know what's closed, what's open. And from a value add perspective, and you touched on it before, those are the visible things that really make a big difference to the lives of our customers. Things like reminder systems, they're regarded as a given. They're the invisible things that are regarded as a given by our customers. What they want to see from a strata manager is, how can you help me proactively in reducing the workload on what otherwise are volunteers? Because most of our customers who are on executive committees managing their strata plans are all volunteers. They're not getting paid for this work.
Yeah, and you touched on something there that I'm very passionate and always have been very passionate about. I mean, I'm a systems junkie, systems and processes junkie, and I'm also a technology junkie, but I keep telling people, all those things are there as tools whereby we can help our customers and be better at serving our customers. So I think you mentioned customer-focused systems, which I think is a really great term.
Absolutely. So was there any other aspect of the makeover that you'd like me to touch on, Jürgen?
I guess, tell us a little bit about the impact it had on you personally, and also the impact on your staff personally, because one of the things that struck me in looking at those is you kind of went into it saying, we've got technology here that has some issues and there's some gaps there that need to be addressed and some upgrades in terms of hardware and maybe software. But, it ended up being a lot more than that, didn't it?
Yeah. So and you know what? There's a couple of us, either on camera or off camera, I've got to say, shed a few tears. So I would say for any owner of a small business, the thing that I underestimated, is the negative impact my technology's decisions were having on my staff. Not always do you know that because of your technology decisions that your staff is getting up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning so they can get onto your system when there's the least amount of load, so they can get a productive day out of the systems. So that bit of it, I knew that some staff were actually logging on outside of hours, but I didn't know the extent. And actually, before we got selected for the makeover, Renee, who actually shed some tears during the makeover as well, when she was asked, what would the makeover mean for her and the positive effect that it would have potentially, she was hugging the Microsoft staff like you wouldn't believe. And she actually started crying because she was experiencing a lot of pain, beforehand. So underestimation of owners like myself in terms of our decisions, if you knew what actually was going on, underneath the carpet, so to speak, you'd probably be making different decisions. That's point number one. When we did go live, which is in April of 2015, a year ago now, then when everybody, the morale in relation to our technology upkeep was chalk and cheese to what it was before, and it was actually better than I expected it. So here I was walking around the office saying, "Oh, you're smiling and you're upbeat," and I honestly, I got to tell you, I thought it was a put on. I go, oh, you're just smiling and happy because you want me to see that you're happy. I didn't actually really believe it, that they were as enthusiastic as they became. So it's interesting. On the one side here, I am underestimating the negative and underestimating the positives. And that was the big learning curve for me at a personal level. And for the staff, because they then weren't necessarily had the ball and chain around their ankles, they've driven a lot of the process improvements in terms of some of the facilities that we got, like Power BI, which is a business intelligence tool, which has allowed us to be used to be very proactive in and I'll give you a quick example in a minute of how we use it. They actually created the reports, I suppose, in there that allowed them to do their job better. They were driving it. It wasn't always me driving it, which it was in the past. And just to give you a quick example of how we've used the business intelligence tool, is in Strata, if we don't get utility type invoices like water bills or gas and electricity bills, we don't have an easy way of knowing in the past when we didn't get them. So we use the tool to say, well, these are the invoices that we've got in the system. We're supposed to receive the next one within 3 months of the old one. Tell us when that doesn't happen so we can request copies and stop getting disconnection notices, which makes us look a bit ordinary in front of our clients. And there's just a really simple example. Another, small hinge and swing, big doors, as you mentioned before, as an example of, what was something that didn't really look the best in terms of the eye of the customer, and we plugged it with a very simple report that we're able to do with this tool, and we weren't able to do that before.
Yeah, that's great. Now, looking through those videos, I was actually moved, I have to tell you that. And to me, the transformation in the people, it came across as very, very genuine and very sincere. And I think it was evident that had really occurred in the business. It's impressive when you get somebody, or your staff are obviously all very dedicated and very passionate about the business, because otherwise they wouldn't kind of go to the lengths that some of them described in terms of putting up with systems that they were struggling with. But then the transformation that occurred, you could sense that on the video. So it must have been awesome to be part of it.
Oh, absolutely, it was. And thank you, because the reason why it came across that way, and I suppose emotional is the word, is because there was a lot of emotion along the way, and we were encouraged to be authentic, because that's the only way, I think, in terms of this, the outcomes that everyone wanted to achieve from this whole process, is to how we, as a little small cog in the world, have the being able to affect people's lives by saying, hey, look at the impact it's had on these people, both positive and negative, and learn from the exercise.
All right, so what do you consider the biggest challenges in your business today then, and how you're addressing those?
I think the out the back end of it, I think let's call it best of breed systems. When we've still got different systems that do different things, and you don't want to move away from one system that does something very, very good that you can't replicate with, let's call it, another system. And the biggest challenge, which fortunately in the technology arena, and I'll touch on this in a second, is synchronizing data across systems. So if we take a customer data as one, we've got essentially 2 or 3 different places where we store customer data. Okay, master file information like names, addresses, phone numbers, and email addresses, simple as that. So our challenge, and we are making inroads into that every week, every month, is to investigate the tools that allows that data to be synchronized pretty well in almost real-time basis, so that no matter which system you're looking at in terms of customer data, you're looking at the same information.
Yeah.
Okay? That's the biggest challenge. Fortunately, with the tools that are coming out in the market these days, and that have been available for quite a few years, the facilities over the last 20 or 30 years that were available to big businesses for many, many years are now being made affordable to small business. And that's the beauty, because to the outside world, my company would probably look a whole lot bigger than it is because of what we're able to do internally. But it's only a 7-person company at the end of the day. But we can act bigger. We're a very agile company, and it's only been made possible by the tools that we use, and it's only been made possible by investing in the integration capabilities to make sure that we don't fall apart at the seams by having different customer data in different systems.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest challenge, and we're working on that on a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I guess you raised there how you can appear much bigger than you actually are to the outside world, and some of that I turn that around and say, well, it's about you can deliver a whole lot more value than perhaps others of your size, because you're leveraging, cleverly leveraging advanced technology and good systems and so on. But as you say, the challenge of making sure that the data is, first of all, it's sound data and it's integrated and the same on wherever you access it from.
Exactly.
Is certainly critical to that. All right. So in terms of your sales process, I'm interested in learning a little bit about that. How do you get about making yourself known in the marketplace and getting new business on board?
Okay, well, it's interesting you talked about this particular subject, because this is my passion, actually. I probably about 5 or 6 years ago, when we were really probably around 2 or 3 years, I think it was about 2009, 2010, I made what is now a wise decision of going hell for leather in AdWords advertising, AdWords on Google AdWords, online advertising, and starting to really get deep in learning the online marketing principles, things like landing pages and keywords and all this other stuff. It can get all very technical. So basically, I've invested heavily in making sure that I've been in the top 3 results for the keywords that I want to bid for in Google, and having I'll call it a sales process behind it, and I'll tell you, what system I use. There's no issue there. To have a follow-up system, because with a long sales cycle like Strata Management sales are, it's not going to a website, hitting the buy now button, putting in your credit card details, and it's done. Try looking at a 3 to 6 months sales process is what we have to. And then when you're selected, you've got to wait 90 days before you actually produce 1 cent, because there's a 90-day termination clause normally with picking up new strata plans. So the way we do it to pretty well utilize AdWords for people who are looking to change because they might not be happy with their current provider, being present when they search for Strata Management or Strata Managers or whatever, and talk to them in terms of what's in it for them, what they want to see out of our offering, rather than just tell them all about us. They don't want to hear that we've been around for 10 years and we've won this award and that award. All they want to know is what we can do for them. Okay, and we use Infusionsoft, which is where I sort of became friends with Christy. So once again, a big shout out to Christy. And develop basically a email sequence of about 20 or 30 emails, which educates first and foremost our prospective clients on what Strata Management's all about, how we're different, how they could, irrespective of whether they were to select us, for example, how could they manage their strata better, irrespective of who their strata manager is. And in my view, if you provide sufficient information to customers or prospective customers, there's no hard sell involved. They normally ask you for, or say, okay, when can we sign up? That normally takes, in some cases, at least 3 to 4 months. And, we also interact the normal way, phone calls, and they respond to my automated emails as well, because it's all automated. The beauty about that is I also get involved, obviously, in the day-to-day of managing my business. And if I didn't have a follow-up system like Infusionsoft, the fires that are burning is always going to take priority. Whereas I know that the engine's always going, the marketing engine, and it's been the secret sauce for me in acquiring, well, what was it, about 200 customers in 10 years? I think it's a pretty good fee. And being able to do it with no salespeople.
Yeah.
My salesperson's called Infusionsoft.
Yeah, that's. I mean, you're talking my language now. There's a lot of things there that in that little answer there. So, I mean, it's fascinating to me, and I wonder why that people still don't get it. What you've just said, that when you offer information and educate people, and and you can, as you say, you can systemize that and automate it to some extent with tools like Infusionsoft, and there's lots of others around that will do that. But educating people and building that relationship without sort of saying, well, buy from me now. It's more about how can you improve this aspect of which I'm experienced in, I have some knowledge in, and I'll share some of that knowledge with you now. And then over time, people come to like you, come to trust you, they learn from you, and they say, okay, it's time to pull the trigger, and it's almost a no-brainer decision for them.
Yeah, I think in answer to your question, I think that this whole instant gratification part of our society is to blame for the first bit. It's about giving first and getting back second. So all the good marketers will tell you, provide value first, and everything takes care of itself after that.
Yeah, that's right.
And all the books, and God knows I'm probably going to offend a whole heap of authors now about, hard sells, soft sells, and, never had to do that. And I've probably sold more than the average person in terms of all sorts of different things. Always adopted the same view, give them the information, help them with the comparisons, and there's no need for all that other hard selling tactics. In fact, for Australians, that's actually what turns us off the sale. Yeah. Whereas in America, it's probably a little bit different, but here in Australia, it's quite a different process. So I agree with you. It's been an absolutely secret sauce. I'm glad I made that call. And more recently, with the advances in technology, I'm spending all my time now pretty well updating my sales sequence to include, let's call it, different mediums. The main one is Facebook, where in the old methods you used to the way you used to send the message out. I mean, let's go back a step. With Infusionsoft, if you ask a few questions at the start of your sales process as to whether they are a self-managed prospect or an existing strata manager, you can then talk to them, because you can talk to them differently based on how they interact with you during the sales process. Number one.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's sort of like decision diamonds in terms of the whole email marketing sequence. What the beauty of the facilities now that are coming to market, and Facebook is an example, is depending on what actions they take, and we would classify prospects as cold, warm, and hot. I'm going to talk to a warm and hot prospect differently in terms of the ads I'm going to show them via Facebook than I would a cold. Okay, so we are tracking that interaction, and we're showing the right ads at the right time in the right place. And so I don't know if you've gone to my website or accessed my Facebook page or anything like that, Jürgen, but you'll probably see I'm starting to stalk you now. Because my ads will start showing up everywhere. But that's not the point. The point is not for your ads to show up everywhere and be what I call a Peter. And if anyone wants to know what Peter means, a pain in the ass. It's about showing the right ads at the right time so that we can add value to the interaction as to what they see, rather than keep just showing the same thing all the time. It's about getting them, moving them along the sales process. So if they're point A, how do you get them to point B?
And yeah, you're right. The technology has gotten so much more powerful. So, and the analogy is like in real life, somebody comes into a store, let's say a physical shop front, and they're interested in shoes but not clothing. So you wouldn't talk to them about clothing. Once you knew that, you'd talk to them about shoes. And if they're interested in boots, not general shoes rather than sandals, you certainly wouldn't be talking to them about beach sandals. So so that's essentially what the technology allows you to do. And also there's potential for savings there. I mean, the way the Facebook ads now are configured, you could target it to an audience that from their Facebook profile or Google profile that they fit into your particular category, and you can target it at times when they're likely to be online. So it's really fascinating.
Yeah, it is, and I'm really enjoying just exploring that at the moment. And in fact, we've probably spent the last month doing that, and I'd say probably in a week or so we'll go live with our first ad in that space.
Great. So what do you see as the risks of pushing the boundaries like that and being sort of at the forefront of innovation?
Yep, good question. The marketing principle behind innovation is not everything's going to work. So be prepared to fail, because some things that you're going to float are just not going to have the legs. So even in presenting advertisements to clients, no one really knows at the end of the day, otherwise we'd all be billionaires, what's going to hit the mark with your prospects. It's all about testing. And that's just the principle that test, fail quickly. So if an ad's not giving you the runs on the board that you're expecting, then try something else. And innovation's the same. I got to say, before going on to Microsoft CRM, I went down another road. We didn't fully understand what it didn't do. We knew what it did. We didn't find out until we went live what it didn't do. It was causing my staff and my clients absolute hell for a 2-month period. And I had to pull it. I had to swallow my pride, say that I got it wrong, and pull it rather than, keep batting our head against the wall. So, there's an example. I tried something new. It didn't work. Pull it. And do not keep going with something that has failure written all over. In fact, it's the smartest way you can tackle either marketing or innovation.
Yeah, that's a really good message, a very strong one there. And I guess my business coach says to me, there's no such thing as failure, there's only feedback. So, you try something and it's not giving you the result you expect or you want, then that's feedback that something has to change. So obviously you've got to figure out what are the causes and what are the symptoms that need addressing, and then you make the changes. All right, well, this has been really fascinating, Ossie. I really appreciate you sharing all that with us so openly. I think it's time we moved on to the Buzz, which is our innovation round, and it's designed to help our audience, and they're primarily innovators and leaders in their fields, with some tips from your experience. So I've got a series of 5 questions I'm going to ask. Hopefully you'll give us some really insightful answers that are going to inspire everyone to go out and do something awesome as a result.
Okay, let's give it a go.
Okay, so what's the number one thing anyone needs to do to be more innovative?
Well, I'll go back to my previous answer.
Yeah.
Willingness to learn, and do not be concerned about failure.
Yeah. That's a good one. Willingness to learn. Don't be concerned about failure. Treat it as feedback. Yeah.
Yep.
What's the best thing you've done to develop new ideas or new services?
As in a particular innovation, or?
Yeah, in your business.
Yeah, look, I think probably in terms of the impact on what is already happening in our business is an automated work order and quote management system that we've developed specifically on how the Strata system the Strata Management system works. We've have implemented a version 1 of that system, and ready to go live with version 2. And I'm, in my honest opinion, the version 2 of the approach will revolutionize the way the whole industry actually interacts with contractors and their customers as it relates to getting work done at their buildings. And just from an industry perspective, we're not going to be holding it internally. Once we get it working and bug free and all that sort of thing, we're happy to provide that approach to other strata management companies, once again with the principle of making sure that the industry gets stronger.
Yeah. Well, that's a great approach to take. So it sounds like also you've got a philosophy of continuous improvement built into that as well. So.
Yep, that's correct, and it's certainly it's more than words. We're the first company in the strata management industry that's been quality certified in 2014 to ISO 9001 certification. So it's not just saying the words. It took me 3 years to get there, and it's because those quality disciplines actually helps you have less hassles.
Yeah, that's right. All right, what's your favourite tool or system for improving productivity and allowing you to be more innovative? So you mentioned a whole range of them there. So.
Look, one part of it, firstly, I think it's workflow automation tools. And I would say Infusionsoft on the one hand, in terms of the sales and marketing aspect. And from an operational perspective, absolutely Microsoft CRM Online.
Yeah. Okay, and you've certainly spoken about the impact both of those have had on your business, so I could expect that they would be the answer. Yeah. Okay, what's the best way to keep a project or a client on track? And it may be the same answer.
Well, it's different. Yeah, I suppose my answer these days would be different to... maybe not. It's an interesting question. Look, the first words that come into my mind, and it relates to how we bill our clients, how a project should be run, even if it's an IT project. And it's the same answer as if it's a construction project. It's about defining the scope and managing scope creep. So I've had a lot of history in being able to deliver projects, whether it's construction or IT projects, on time and on budget. Because if you get the scope right up front and manage to a project plan and certainly really play hardball on the scope creep, because you have to, otherwise the other two will blow out, either cost or timelines.
That's right, yeah.
That's my answer. It's around management of scope.
Yeah, that really rings a bell with me. There's been a lot of discussion on one of the forums or one of the mastermind groups that I'm involved in around scope and scope creep, because and it usually is, like you say, when things get out of hand with the customer, it usually comes back to that, not having the expectations clear up front, and if they are reasonably clear up front, not sort of sticking to them.
Yeah, and look, I can give you a quick example. I was at a meeting where I pretty well had to get on my high horse with the customer. They were going to blow $350,000 if they weren't going to take into account what I was telling them in terms of, if you don't go down this road, the chances are that you're going to blow the budget, blow the timelines. Now, fortunately, they did listen, They have decided to go down the road that I'm requesting that they do. Not that I can force them to do that. And as a result of that, I'm really, really confident that they're not going to burn the money that they otherwise would have.
Yeah. All right. What's the number one thing anyone can do to differentiate themselves?
Do something that no one else does. Unique selling proposition means no one else does it. And if you can just figure out one of those, just one, that in itself is enough for differentiation. I mean, obviously you'd want more than one, but so when I started Guardian, no one was offering no lock-in contract approach 10 years ago. So when I started Guardian Strata, I said, what can I do that's exactly the opposite of everyone else? Let's start with that principle first. Now, you might not end up with that, but from a mindset issue, if you start with that as a starting point, you'll more than likely create your differentiators than being the run-of-the-mill, what's different about me sort of thing.
Yeah, that's great advice. So turn something on its head.
Yep.
And of course that's what leaders do, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'd like to think that I know what I don't know. I probably other people probably think I'm got leadership qualities and all those sort of things, but I also know what I don't know. And so I've just got a thirst for knowledge. I'm a bit like you, I think, Jürgen. It's just I just want to know more, and I want to know more, and that drives your improvement. Just the thirst for knowledge.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was reminded just today, a couple of hours ago, about one of Einstein's most famous quotes, which is, "The more I learn, the more I realise how little I know, and the more I realise how little I know, the more I want to learn." So, yeah.
Yep, that sounds like me.
Yeah. All right. So, what's the future for you and for Guardian Strata Management?
Yeah. Look, I want to now, for the next steps, is actually to take advantage of the technology we do have. And you'd think yourself, well, okay, you've got it all. Well, yeah, we've got all the technology. It's just a question now, well, how much of each piece of technology are we actually utilizing? Because too many times organizations will implement a piece of technology, and before they implement 15 or 20% of the current capability of the existing technology, they're out chasing the next shiny bullet,
Yeah.
This one's got these features, I want to change from this to that. And so, well, hang on, have you explored all that this one's got to offer before you start moving on? Otherwise, you're in a continual chase mode rather than a consolidation mode. So I think we have absolutely all the tools we need. Doesn't mean we're not going to explore more options, and it's taken advantage fully of what we've been blessed to have as a result of the makeover.
Okay, and where do you see the strata management industry heading?
Well, that's an interesting point because, for example, one of the things that's happening in the strata management industry, there's a legislation change that's only 6 months away from becoming law. And one of the areas, I think we've got the absolute opportunity to change both the quality of life of strata managers, the quality of life of our clients, because in the past we've been restricted to holding statutory annual general meetings face to face, whereas in 6 months' time we'll be able to have meetings by electronic voting, for example. So the new legislation allows for that to occur.
Okay.
Which means, just to give you an example, for a strata manager that starts normal working hours 9 to 5 and then has to go out to a nighttime meeting at 6:30, which lasts an hour and a half to 2 hours, and then go home, they don't get home till 10 o'clock at night. Which, you back that up one day after another, which in some cases you do, by the end of the week you're knackered. So just using that one little piece as an example, if we take advantage of what the legislation now provides for, we could change the lives of our customers and ourselves, because no one really wants to sit around for an hour and a half to 2 hours when we can get it done in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
By another means. Because people currently have trouble even getting home from work if they're working in the city and they live out Castle Hill before 6:30. So there's all the stress of getting to the meeting, going to the meeting without having dinner, sitting, and not every strata meeting goes very cordially, I've got to say. There's an hour and a half of, let's say, either productive or non-productive discussion, and then you're sort of back in your unit at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and it's time to go to sleep.
Yeah. All right.
So,
Well, finally, then, what's the number one piece of advice you'd give to any business owner who wants to be a leader in innovation and in their field?
Yep, I'll say it like this: good solutions are never from the one brain. You, I think, touched on, Jürgen, a little bit. You're a part of a mastermind group. I think when two minds together, it equals three. I call it 1 + 1 = 3. So I personally have surrounded myself with the people that are 2-3 times better than me in certain aspects of what I'm learning. Surround myself with those people, and call it a think tank, call it a mastermind group. You mentioned earlier on in this call that you've got a business coach. All these type of strategies help you think differently and come up with ideas. And the one piece of advice I've got to give in terms of ideas, they are only ideas until such time as you take action. Okay? And if I could steal a little catchphrase from in the Infusionsoft world, version 1 of implementation of your idea is better than version none.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Take action on your ideas.
That's good. I'm just writing down ideas. Ideas are just ideas until you take action, because I like both of those. Yeah. So definitely, I mean, certainly from my own experience, and I see others around me in business, the people that are successful certainly have surrounded themselves with others that contribute, and they contribute in a way that they challenge them. They call them out if something's, if they're procrastinating on something, or if they're, if they're getting in their own way, if you like. One of my favourite sayings from my business coach is, get out of your own way, get over. Actually, she says, get over yourself.
That's good. I like it.
We always have a laugh over that one, but that's definitely great advice, and taking action on the ideas. Otherwise, they're just ideas. Well, thank you, Ossie. This has been really fascinating, and I really appreciate your time, and also you being so honest and sharing with us today. Where can people reach out and say thank you?
Oh yeah, just an easy email address: Ossie OSSIE @guardianstrata.com.au.
Okay, and we'll post that on the show notes as well, along with links to your website and also the videos from that makeover show. That would be really great. So finally then, who would you like to see me interview on a future InnovaBuzz podcast, and why?
Okay. Has to, a local... Samantha Orford. I don't know if you've... Samantha Orford.
How do you spell that surname?
ALLFORD.
Okay, Orford, yeah. Yeah, I don't know Samantha. What does she do?
Oh, she's in the digital space. She's in terms of differentiation, she runs a company called Travelling Frog.
Okay.
Which is similar to, I think, those online bookings where you go to and book called bed and breakfast and all those sort of things these days, or Airbnb.
Mm-hmm.
And she's worked out a business model where there's no commission.
Okay.
She's a digital marketer as well. But I'd be interested. Well, I've never asked her this question, but I'd be interested in asking her. So, how do you make a business model work with no commissions? That'd be
All right. Well, we'll note that one down and
Mm.
ask her that. So, Samantha, look out for an invitation from us for the InnovaBuzz podcast, courtesy of Ossie Pisanu.
Mhm.
So, thanks
Great.
very much, Ossie, again for sharing your time today and your insights with us on the InnovaBuzz podcast. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed this immensely, and I've learnt quite a bit as well. Hopefully, we can keep in touch. I wish you all the best for the future, and let's keep in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jürgen, for the opportunity, and hope it's been of help to other people.
Yeah, thanks, Ossie.
You're welcome. Bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed meeting Ossie as much as I enjoyed speaking with him. He was very generous and transparent in sharing what Guardian learnt through the process of their technology makeover. There are a lot of good tips for all businesses in this interview. All the show notes for this episode will be at innovabiz.com.au/Ossie Pisanu. That is OSSIEPISANU. All lowercase, all one word, you know the deal, no funny hieroglyphics or anything. innovabiz.com.au/Ossie Pisanu. That'll have all of the links and everything that we spoke about during this episode there. Now, Ossie suggested I interview Samantha Alford from Get You Digital and Go to Travel on a future InnovaBuzz podcast. So, Samantha, keep your eye on your inbox for an invitation from me for the InnovaBuzz podcast, courtesy of Ossie Pisanu. Thank you all for listening to the InnovaBuzz podcast. We really appreciate you being here. We'd love you to review this podcast because reviews help us get found, but more importantly, your feedback helps us to improve. You can review us at iTunes or on Stitcher, and while you're there, please subscribe so you'll never miss a future episode. Until next time, I'm Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBizz. Remember, if you don't innovate, you stagnate. So think big, be adventurous, and keep innovating.